Back in the summer of 1977, Andrew Collins, a renowned UFO investigator and author, stumbled upon a case of alien abduction that would go down in British UFO history as one of the most significant. Hi folks, I'm Johnny and welcome to The Oddest. This case all centres around a typical family of five. The incident occurred about 3 years earlier on a seemingly regular Sunday night on October 27th, 1974. A couple and their 3 kids whisked away in the dead of night. Some unwanted attention from extraterrestrial beings and a mysterious 3-hour gap in their memory. What followed were the events that nowadays are all too familiar in such cases. Strange beings, police harassment, and intense surveillance by the men in black. So, let's get into it. The Day family came across a wee article in the local newspaper about UFOs. They decided that, although they didn't fancy their names being dragged through the tabloids in a similar fashion, well, they needed help. They needed answers. It's worth noting that during my research for this case, I've seen the family both called the Day family and the Avis family. In most cases, these are cited as being pseudonyms. Andrew Collins, a UFO investigator, got wind of their plight and dove into the investigation, digging deep into their story. He meticulously documented every single detail, from sketches to unsettling transcripts of hypnotic regression sessions with the father, John Day. Through his work, Collins concluded that the family's experience was undeniably genuine. It wasn't just a wild tale, it was a stark reminder that UFOs and alien abductions are real, and they could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. The scene was set on a typical evening. It was nearly 10 o'clock at night and the Day family was wrapping up a wee visit to Susan's parents. Described as your average down-to-earth East London clan, they lived in a cosy semi-detached house in Aveley, Essex. Just a stone's throw away from the bustling city of London, the area around Aveley remained a patchwork of rural landscapes, just as it does to this very day. So, as the Day family made their way home from Harold Hill, they found themselves cruising through stretches of open countryside. Their usual route took them south from Hornchurch along Hackton Lane, a leisurely 9-mile journey that typically took around 20 minutes, a journey that they had traversed several times before. Now, this night was supposed to be like any other. John was adamant that they hit the road about 9:45 that night. That way he could get back home and be settled on the couch ready to watch his TV show that he never misses. I mean, we've all been there, right? Unbeknownst to them, this journey would not go according to plan, and in fact, it would change their lives forever. With the car radio humming in the background, John and Susan in the front seats, and their 2 youngest, Karen and Stuart, asleep in the back, their eldest, Kevin, kept watch gazing out of the window. That's when they spotted it, a peculiar sight hovering above the rooftops. A pale blue shimmering light shaped like an oval about 500 yards away. It glowed like a bright star, seemingly trailing along with them, moving in sync with the car but also stopping and starting intermittently. Young Kevin made mention of this to his parents, and at first they figured it just might be a helicopter, but as they continued on and the light occasionally vanished behind a patch of woodland, well, it became clear that they were witnessing something out of the ordinary. Spoiler alert, it wasn't a helicopter. What made it even spookier was the complete absence of other cars on the road. As they drove through the dark countryside, there was obviously no street lights, and so this strange light was the only thing that was illuminating the road. As the road veered sharply left onto Park Farm Road, this strange craft still followed them, almost as if it had its sights set on sticking with the Day family. After about half a mile or so, it made another adjustment, seemingly heading straight for the road and the unsuspecting family. As they neared a row of terraced houses, the light vanished behind some thick bushes. Now on Aveley Road, a sense of dread washed over John and Susan. Something just didn't feel right. As they rounded a bend at a modest 30 miles per hour, the atmosphere in the car took a bizarre turn. The usual sounds of the engine and the tyres were drowned out, leaving only the faint murmur of the radio. But even that soon fizzled out, crackling and smoking. The bright light illuminating the interior of the car from the radio started to flicker. John, in a panic, yanked out all the wires, plunging the car into darkness. Still cruising at the same speed, the family found themselves enveloped in a dense green mist that seemed to materialise just out of nowhere, towering about 8 to 9 feet high and swallowing the road ahead. With the lights out and the engine spluttering, it was like they were drifting through a surreal dream. Whipping her head around, Susan checked on the kids in the back seat. They were still fast asleep and completely oblivious to what was going on. Meanwhile, John and Susan struggled to stay alert, their senses dulled by this strange green mist. It was disorientating, hard to tell if the car was even still moving. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the mist vanished with a jolt, like the car hit some sort of bump. The lights flickered back to life and the engine roared back into action, allowing John to drive his shaken family the rest of the way home. Susan couldn't shake off this strange feeling and found herself turning and asking, "Is everyone still here?" A strange question to ask, for sure, but this could be a mix of nerves and fear. But thankfully, everyone was there and accounted for. Kevin was still wide awake and keeping a watchful eye out of the window, while Karen and Stuart were still deep asleep, undisturbed. Once they all got home, they gently carried the sleeping children up to bed, and John, feeling drained, settled onto the couch to watch his TV show. Whatever this was, it was over. A strange, spooky mist. Could it have been linked to that strange craft that had been following them? I mean, it doesn't matter anyway, because it's all done now. It wasn't. As they relaxed into the evening, reality hit them like a ton of bricks. It was 1 AM already. What was supposed to be a quick 20-minute journey had somehow stretched into 3 hours long. In the months that followed, life for the Day family took a bizarre turn. Their relationship with food and drink underwent a drastic shift, with everyone except the youngest, Stuart, ditching meat for a vegetarian diet. Even John was once a heavy smoker, kicked the habit cold turkey, going from puffing 60 to 70 cigarettes a day to none at all. By Christmas, the stress of it all took its toll, leading to a nervous breakdown that forced John out of work until the following year. Whatever happened during those missing 3 hours that October night had deeply affected them all. But the weirdness didn't stop there. The family felt like they were being watched. Cars with tinted windows tailed them, and they claimed to have been stalked by shady figures dressed in black suits. We've seen them before. They even described one eerie encounter where 2 of these mysterious individuals parked outside their house from dusk until the wee hours of the morning. John had to call the cops to get rid of them, but that in itself ended up being a strange and bizarre occurrence. See, only minutes after John had called the local bobbies, there was a chap at the door. It was a policeman, but John would later say that he seemed odd and out of place. He had no interest in hearing what they had to say about this seemingly being followed by strange men in black, so he left. Watching the cop leave the property, John noticed that he seemed to talk to the occupants of this strange blacked out car that was still there, only to see, moments later, that they all left the street together. That's dodgy. In the coming days and weeks, they would get persistent phone calls. Only when answered there would be no one on the other side, or at least no one was talking. Sometimes they would hear strange clicking sounds from the receiver, and on more than one occasion they would hear this distinctive sound of someone breathing. And then there were the encounters on the road. See, John found himself being pulled over by men claiming to be cops, sometimes as often as 5 times a week. To comply with the law, he had to make countless trips to the police station, producing documents every single time. As unsettling as all this was, it was just the tip of the iceberg compared to what John and Susan had actually experienced. Back at home, with doors tightly shut against the outside world, the Day family found themselves dealing with a whole new level of weirdness. Strange noises echoed throughout the house, and objects seemed to have a mind of their own, moving around even when the kids weren't even there to be blamed. It was like they were experiencing some sort of poltergeist activity. Late at night, eerie droning sounds filled the air, as if something unseen was hovering right above the roof. The noise would build up, getting louder and louder, and then absolute silence. It became such a regular occurrence that even visitors like Susan's sister, Anne, well, when she would come over to babysit, they couldn't even ignore it. But it wasn't just the droning sound above them. They heard strange clicks and even what they swore sounded like Morse code, especially in John and Susan's bedroom late at night. Despite their best efforts, They couldn't decipher the meaning behind these strange cryptic sounds. Perhaps the most unsettling of all was Kevin's claim. In the dead of night, sometime in 1975, he woke up to find a bizarre figure standing at the foot of his bed. He would freak out and tell his parents that it was a tall figure, but it was dressed like a clown. Right? Meanwhile, John and Susan had their own horrors to contend with. They experienced fragmented dreams of being poked and prodded by strange, gnome-like creatures. By the time Andrew Collins, the researcher and author, got involved in 1977, the family was just exhausted from it all. Encouraged by an article on UFOs in the local newspaper, they reached out, eager to share their story and hopefully make sense of it all. Collins and fellow researcher Barry King met with John and Susan on August 15, 1977, to dig into the details of this case. Collins wasted no time in trying to piece together the facts, verifying elements of their story, like the duration of their supposed 20-minute journey that turned into 3 hours, and confirming the timing of the TV show that they had hoped to watch once they got home. Collins also wanted to gauge John and Susan's familiarity with UFOs and famous abduction cases, like that of the Betty and Barney Hill incident back in 1961. But apart from catching a couple of TV shows on the topic, they didn't really know much about it. Collins noted that their knowledge was pretty limited. Impressed by their sincerity of their claims, Collins suggested that they try hypnotic regression. It might just be the key to unlocking the mystery behind those missing 3 hours. What they uncovered during these sessions, no one was prepared for. So, on September 25th of 1977, John, along with Collins, Barry King and a few other researchers, met with Dr. Leonard Wilder, a dental surgeon who'd been using hypnosis for over 20 years to study reincarnation. The first session, well, it didn't really result in any sort of regression. John was just far too anxious. Instead, Dr. Wilder focused on easing his nerves and testing his responsiveness to hypnosis with some basic exercises. It turned out that John was a great subject, so they scheduled a second session for the following Sunday. That's when things took a chilling turn. With Collins and the researchers present again, Dr. Wilder put John under hypnosis. As he regressed back through his childhood, his voice changed, becoming more childlike with each age that he passed. Then they delved into the night of their strange journey home. John described the odd light that had followed them, low, bright and multicoloured. He recounted how they drove into a thick green mist enveloped in silence and darkness. Prompted by Dr. Wilder, John went on to describe being taken into a large room separated from his children, but reassured by these beings not to worry. Oh well, that's alright then. What came next, revealed through the second session of hypnotic regression, was truly chilling. After driving into that eerie green mist, John and his family found themselves aboard an alien craft. A large room where he's separated from his wife and kids and confronted by 2 different alien species. The first ones were tall and kind of creepy looking, but surprisingly peaceful. They were decked out in some full bodysuit, leaving only a bit of their face visible. Their skin, he said, looked translucent, almost hollow, and their eyes, well, they were this weird shade of pink. John said they communicated with him telepathically. As these tall beings watched, John underwent an examination by another type of alien. Lying on this bizarre table, he felt this flat bar scan his entire body. The machine was operated by a small, furry creature. Over time, both John and Susan sketched out what they had seen during their time on the craft. During one intense session with Dr. Wilder, where even Susan reluctantly tagged along, John spilled more beans about the abduction. With researcher Andrew Collins there to document this, John described the examiner, a not-so-friendly looking alien with big eyes and a mouth that he said wasn't quite human. As the session wore on, the questions got weirder and creepier. Dr. Wilder asked why the aliens had come here. John's response? To observe and to lead. They saw humans as potential hosts, which sent chills down everyone's spine, and when asked where they came from, John's response put everyone on edge. He said, "It doesn't matter where they came from, they're not leaving." But then things got even stranger. John clammed up, unable to answer any more questions about the aliens' bases on Earth. It was like he hit a mental roadblock, even under hypnosis. Afterwards, he told Collins that he felt like something was stopping him from saying any more. Susan, understandably spooked by John's sessions, stuck to her guns about avoiding hypnosis altogether. But just being there and discussing their experiences together with Collins and the other researchers, well, that seemed to jog her memory. Dreams that once seemed hazy suddenly became vivid, and both she and John started piecing together more details about their abduction that night. As Collins put in his 1978 article, these hypnosis sessions were like digging into the subconscious, unearthing buried memories and bringing them back into the light. Collins made it clear, these hypnosis sessions were a game changer. They pretty much shut down any notion that the Day family cooked up a massive hoax. After all, John's sessions, meticulously documented and overseen by medical professionals, were considered legit by many. With that in mind, the extra details from the Day family take this case to a whole new level, backing up Collins' claim that the Aveley abduction is one of Britain's most significant cases. Both John and Susan independently describe and even sketch the aliens, and their experiences on the craft were eerily similar. Separated from their kids, John and Susan were whisked away by these tall, suited leader figures through a hole in a wall. Strapped to the table, Susan felt a weird sensation as the small examiner did his thing. John mentioned feeling a warm, tingling sensation as the scan passed over him, and both of them reported being touched by the examiner in unsettling ways that left them blacked out. Basically, they both claimed that the alien creature was able to pull a Spock move on them, and when they touched their foreheads with 3 fingers, it made them lose consciousness altogether. But it didn't stop there. Susan, still rattled from being separated from her kids, refused the food offered by these beings, fearing that it might have been drugged. Instead, one of them offered to play her some music. By twiddling their fingers in a hypnotic rhythm, they created a soothing sound that eased Susan's mind, even as she freaked out about her kids. Feeling Susan's lingering worry, the beings supposedly reassured her with a bone-chilling statement. "Your children are safe. We value your children. We do not reproduce. We do not have children. We reproduce through you. You are our children." As the abduction unfolded, John and Susan claimed they were given a tour of the alien craft and instructed to watch a screen. This screen displayed a rapid-fire series of images, maps, pictures, diagrams, all too fast for them to properly process. Each image was accompanied by a voice in their minds, providing detailed explanations. When John expressed his difficulty in keeping up, the tall being reassured him, simply saying, "It is all being remembered by your mind." For Susan, it was like having an encyclopedia's worth of information dumped straight into her brain all at once. But one thing they both remembered clearly was being shown an advanced hologram. It was a planet, the aliens' homeworld, in its last few days, devastated by pollution and natural disasters. The beings explained to them that they had lost their planet, along with 2 of the suns, due to misuse. Susan recalled being told, "This is where we come from, and then this is the seed of life, our past and our future, our whole existence." John also shared an intriguing detail that he learned from the beings. They claimed to be us, humans. Now, let's delve into these beings' supposed journey to Earth. According to John's account, he described their ability to travel at incredibly high speeds, almost instantaneously. They achieved this feat using what they called an activator, a device capable of transforming particles and manipulating gravitational forces to propel their craft. When it came to manoeuvring within Earth's atmosphere, they employed something called a magnetic drive. The abduction itself concluded with John and Susan being returned to their car, with their children seemingly unaffected, except for their eldest, Kevin. At just 10 years old at the time, his parents understandably hesitated to subject him to any of this hypnotic regression or extensive questioning about his experience. Andrew Collins, the researcher involved, mentioned in his article that he was only permitted to speak to Kevin twice regarding this incident. However, an intriguing comment from Kevin surfaced unexpectedly when he told his father, "They gave me a lot of things to do when I grew up, but I've forgotten them all." This incident prompted significant changes in the Day family's lifestyle, from adopting vegetarianism to giving up alcohol, smoking, and processed foods with synthetic additives. While these changes aren't necessarily negative, they underscore the profound impact the abduction had on their lives. Despite these seemingly positive adjustments, it's hard to overlook the eerie undertones of the Day family's encounter that night back in 1974. Their story is just one among many alien abduction accounts that seem to convey a subtle message of environmental concern. The truth is, we can't really be sure about the validity of their experience. It's just too mind-boggling to wrap our heads around. Even Andrew Collins, who seemed pretty impressed, especially with John's hypnotic regression sessions, well, he must have had his doubts. I mean, it's not totally out there to think that John and Susan might have gotten their stories straight before sitting down with researchers like Collins. Their artwork too, the sketches of the aliens, well, that raises some eyebrows. Sure, they say that, they were created independently, but come on, they're a married couple. They've had plenty of time to cook up a convincing story together. Also, hypnotic regression. So let's assume then, just for a wee second, that for some bizarre reason, it's all a hoax. What's their motive, really? I mean, John and Susan, or whatever their real names are, they waited 3 whole years before coming forward with their story. And then after they didn't try to cash in on it or anything like that. They just wanted to get it off their chests, plain and simple. They didn't even want to use the real names. They were just an ordinary family, scared out of their mind. So why concoct such a wild tale? It just doesn't add up. Now, I'm not saying that everything that they said is the gospel truth. I'm just saying that their reasons for lying aren't exactly crystal clear. Plus, let's not forget the striking similarities between their story and others like it. Take the case, for example, of Barney and Betty Hill back in September of 1961, for instance. They were just a regular American couple driving home from a vacation when they had their own close encounter of the alien kind. I've already covered their story in depth in a previous video, so I won't get into it here. Vivid dreams that just won't quit, strange buzzing noises echoing throughout the house, and even some spooky mind-to-mind chats with the very beings who whisked them away. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? Well, that's what this family claimed that they went through. Now, you might wonder if they were trying to pull a Barney and Betty Hill, aiming for some kind of copycat fame. But here's the thing, Andrew Collins, the guy digging into their story, well, he found out that John and Susan had pretty much no clue about the Hill abduction, or so they claim. Another bizarre tale in the Alien Encounter Hall of Fame is the Green Man of Icklemore. This one happened in December of 1987. On the peaceful countryside of Yorkshire, England. A former police officer out for a walk, minding his own business, when BAM! He comes face to face with a little green dude. Next thing you know, he's on board an alien spaceship just like the Day family, and guess what? He gets treated to a disturbing movie marathon just like they did. Scenes of destruction, starving people, and waste choking rivers. But here's where it gets really eerie. When asked about the second film, this guy clams up and says, I'm not supposed to talk about that one. I mean, that does sound familiar. Yep, just like John, this guy feels like the aliens got him on lockdown, even under hypnosis. And like the Day family, he wasn't interested in fame or fortune, he just wanted to get the word out about his wild and terrifying experience. Now, if you're thinking that these stories have a nugget of truth, you might find me sceptical about the aliens, helping hand sort of thing. Because here's the thing, time and time again, abductees come back from their close encounters seriously shaken up. They're not exactly throwing parties to celebrate their intergalactic adventures. They're making changes to their lives, and guess what's top of the list? Yep, you guessed it. Environmentalism. Therapists who've worked with these type of people have been saying the same thing for years. Alien abductions? Not exactly a picnic. You know, it's not uncommon for folks who have been through an alien abduction to shake things up afterwards in their lives. Some literally pack up and head for the hills, become park rangers or eco-warriors. Now, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it does make you wonder about the true intentions of these shadowy, mind-bending, shape-shifting extraterrestrial aliens. Physically feeble, but mentally sharp. They might be trying to tilt the scales in their favour by bombarding us with distressing images of our ruined planet, poking and prodding us, and even swiping our children. It's like they're trying to soften us up, weaken our defences. And there's only one reason why another race would do this: invasion. That's it for this wee video, folks. I'm away for a cup of tea now. Stay safe out there, please. Tell someone that you love them. And remember, no matter what, keep smiling.